Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Today, I am so honored to have Dr. Lindsay Evans, who is the Greencross Regional Clinical Director, and she's a veterinarian in Australia. We just worked together on a conference for Greencross, as opposed to Red Cross here in the United States. Greencross works with the veterinary world in Australia. And Lindsay's going to tell us a little bit more about that. But Lindsay, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Deborah. We had a great discussion with the conference, so really looking forward to today's discussion.
I know we did the mental health piece because conflict and how to avoid burnout and stress was a really important piece of the Australian Veterinary Conference.
Yeah, and I think at the moment, with all the stress that's going on in the world, it's just so important for our vets and nurses to be taking care of themselves, because that means that they can then take better care of our patients and our clients as well. So it is such an important area to work on.
Oh, absolutely. So we always ask our guests the one question, and then we meander afterwards because there's so much information that they all provide to the listeners, which is why we have such a wonderful following. So Dr. Lindsay, why do pets matter to you?
So I think there's a number of reasons, and obviously my career is all about pets. So, first of all, it's that sort of, it's that real unconditional love from both sides, so that we give to our pets, that they give back to us, the fact that they just make us feel good. And there is starting to come out some amazing research from the Human Animal Bond Research Institute on what's actually behind that. But I think it's something that we've all instinctively known for so long. And then also, it's looking at what our pets can teach us as well. And so, when we're talking about mental health as well, a lot of that's about, mindfulness, sort of being in the moment, that our pets are all so great at. But they're also so accepting and, of us. They, it doesn't matter what we've done that day that might be embarrassing or that we think is not being done perfect. We'll come home, they're happy to see us. But they're also, they're themselves as well. And so they're not worried about things that society is sort of pressuring them to conform to certain roles and things. They're each uniquely themselves. They're not worried about being anyone else. And I think, again, that's just something that we can really learn from them about our own mindsets.
It's so interesting. So we did the mental health piece, and it was interesting that you just went right to that human-animal bond piece, because I think our mental health is really cared for by the interaction we have with pets.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, through the whole pandemic, with so many places in lockdown where people's worlds have shrunk, we have just really realised more and more just the importance of our pets and the huge benefits they give us. And, so many people have welcomed new pets into their lives and just found, what a wonderful thing that is as well. Or they've been spending more time with their existing pets and just, really seeing the benefits of that as well. And I think for a lot of people, that's been their lifeline at the moment.
Absolutely. I know that I'm spending more time with my pet, and you probably have pets. We're going to ask about what they are soon. But the ability to really shift your life, I've taken to, of recent weeks, deciding that I'm looking at what the benefit of the pandemic was. And one of the things that was a huge benefit was people who had pets spent more time with their pets, got more exercise, went walking with their pets, because it was March, April, May, just as we're coming into spring, you were going into winter. So it might not have been the same for you. You'll have to let me know. But we all, saw everything spring up. And it was probably the first time in my life I saw the entire spring cycle into summer. And so it was just such a wonderful experience. For you, it was more the hunkering down for winter.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess in Australia, we don't have as cold winters as a lot of parts of the US as well. And so, I think it was still really important for, as long as it wasn't raining and things, people were still getting out there and walking their pets, or for people without pets, getting out there and walking as well. Because at one point we sort of had you could go out for an hour of exercise. And so I think people were rotating, the walks for the dogs. And so one person would take them 1 hour and someone else would take them later in the day. And so, yeah, absolutely. Most of our dogs, as our patients, have been getting more walks than ever, which has been a little bit compensated by more snacks than ever as well. With
Thank God, because otherwise we have a lot of skinny dogs. I know that I've walked my dog, and it is true. And I walk my dog twice a day, and I'm sure if you walk your dog, I'm going to see which one's there, as I said, your dog or cat or whatever. The people who aren't walking dogs and cats light up when they see me. Did you find that when you were walking your dog?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's, and when people have got masks on and things like that, it's definitely harder to have that, I guess facial emotional connection as well. But, pets are an amazing thing that can be that real connection as well. And I think for people who don't have pets, they're, they love to have a bit of a pat of someone else's dog on a walk and things. And it's, a really great way to, just break the ice as well when you're walking around and have a bit of a conversation, a little bit of human interaction. And again, as well as our animal interaction, that human interaction and connection is so important.
Right, especially now because we can't really be with people. So if you're walking your dog, you actually get to stand 10 feet apart from someone with a mask on and say hello. And actually, my dogs, I walked 2 at the beginning, and then one of them went off to hunting camp because he's an Irish setter. And everyone asked me where the other dog was. And it was so the human animal bond, right? And people are really worried when they don't see both dogs with you. So it took some people a really long time to ask me where that other dog was. And I realized that they were afraid something had happened to him. And so I actually initiated the conversation when they would look at me quizzically, not say anything because they were a little afraid. And I'm sure as a veterinarian, you know this, people just, it's hard to ask how the other dog is. Where's the other dog? Whatever. And it was interesting because I just pipe up and say, he's at camp. And then you could see the relief on their face. He's at camp. Okay, he's not dead, thank God. And because everybody got to see me every day in March and April and May and June and July, and he left the end of August. And it was really. In fact, today I actually had somebody. Now he's been gone for 2 months. Say, not 2 dogs today? And I went, no, not 2 dogs today. And as I'm walking away, I go, not 2 dogs for 2 months. So. Obviously, you're observant, but it just creates that conversation, like you said. So it creates human-human interaction and creates human-animal bond. I love the memes that they've had out there now where the dogs, when you were saying everybody was walking the dog for an hour, where the dog said, enough, no more.
Yeah, definitely.
And the memes about the cats. So tell me about your pets. What do you have?
Yeah, so I've got a gorgeous older Labrador, senior Labrador Phoebe. And so we sort of got her at about 10 years old. So, but she's just like such a placid, lovely girl as well, and such a sweetie. And so she's also pre-COVID sort of gone to a few like preschool, kindergarten things to be able to sort of meet the kids because she does have that great nature as well too.
Oh, wonderful. So tell me a little bit more because it's so heartwarming that you adopted a senior pet because those are the ones that never get adopted. And tell me, it seems like that might be something you do usually or no?
Well, so she was actually my uncle's dog. So it was sort of not from a shelter or anything, but they were moving overseas. And so initially we were borrowing her for a little bit. And then she sort of permanently became ours as well. So it was really, great to be able to take her and then, they knew that she had a good home and they could also, visit her later on and things like that. And, initially the plan was once they came back to sort of send her back, but because she was getting a bit older and was pretty settled with us, and she'd gone from sort of Sydney where she was a little bit more of an outside dog to immediately an inside dog with us that, just didn't think she'd cope with the going back to that lifestyle as much, because she, I think from day one, she was sort of like, I'm an inside dog. I'm perfectly happy in here.
Yeah, look at this. This is a couch, and this is, I have to tell you that there are so many great stories about people who've adopted older dogs who came from a certain situation, and then when they got to the new situation, they were like, I'm staying. It's as if they know the deal.
Yeah. And so, she's, settled in, straight away. And now, like, she's definitely such a big part of our lives. And, it does feel like we've had her for forever, not adopted her as a senior dog, really.
So tell me a little bit more about Greencross, because, of course, in the United States, no one knows about Greencross because it's an Australian group, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong. But tell me a little bit more, because it was such a wonderful conference with so many great programs for veterinarians to attend, both in science and emergency medicine and mental health, that I loved going to all the events that I was able to make.
Yeah, so it's across sort of Australia and New Zealand, although the clinics in New Zealand have got a different name as well. And then a part of the organisation, we've got Pet Barn, which is a retail store. We've also got a number of sort of emergency specialist centres as well. So it is a really big animal care organisation and pet care organisation, and that's sort of one of the aims, is to try and be the best at that in the world, because we do have that real breadth of services that we can offer as well. So there's about 150 GP clinics across Australia, and we do have a really big focus on our standards of care, and part of that does include that education for both our vets and nurses. And so normally our symposium would be a face-to-face event, and that's always been a really good time for networking, seeing everyone. But obviously with COVID, it's had to go online, and the team organising it did such an amazing job of just pivoting, moving everything online, having some amazing international speakers such as yourself as well. And like you said, such a breadth of different streams. And there were some real advantages to having it online as well. And so, where normally you could potentially attend about 8 different lectures, this time people, could attend as many as they could over the 4-week period. And so I think the average was sort of getting up to about sort of 15 or 20 webinars per person. And, even physically with a live conference, you can't attend 2 different streams at once. And so people were able to then dip their toes in and out of different streams. The mental health stream was amazing. That got really good feedback rating on the webinars, and really a lot of attendance as well. And that's just so important for anyone in the network as well, to really look after themselves and each other as well. And then we had business, and we had, the scientific streams, so medicine, surgery, emergency, nursing streams, just so we can, everyone has the opportunity to be keeping up to date with what's the latest in evidence-based medicine, so that we can offer that to our pets and our clients as well.
So I know, as the clinical director, it is probably imperative for you to help veterinarians maintain good mental health, because it is amazing that veterinarians here in the United States and possibly in Australia and New Zealand as well are a high level of suicide. So we really need to do a lot of self-care and a lot of support because they are such compassionate and caring people, that they take a lot of what clients say to heart. And I know Nadine Hamilton has a group in Australia called Love Your Pet, Love Your Vet, just to simply educate veterinarians on how to sustain their self-worth, regardless of what's being said, and also to speak to pet owners on how to better respect and speak to your vet.
Yeah, and Nadine was one of the amazing speakers in that stream. And I think, that mental health component is so important. And getting our clients and our pet owners involved as well, because to get the best care for their pets, we need to make sure that we're all working together, that we've got that real trust, and so that the pet owners are comfortable with talking to us about, what's going on, and we're not going to, hopefully we shouldn't be judging them for that as well, because everyone's doing the best they can. And so if they've given some treatment at home and things, it's really important to understand why, and then also to educate them, because if we sort of shut them down, they're not going to tell us next time, and we're not going to get the best outcome. And then also it's about us working with the pet owners on the best way to treat their pet as well. And so that's about giving them options, but it's also talking to them about, how practically they might administer that medication, and is that going to be something that's going to be difficult? And if it is, do we have other options? And sometimes we've got different formulations of drugs. And for some pets, we've organised to have them brought into the clinic each day so that we can administer the medication to try and make it a success if there's no other option. And so it's really got to be, everyone's got to be on board that it's a partnership. We're not working against each other, we're working together. And so we've got to have that trust and that respect that goes both ways as well. And so I think, clients and vets have all been guilty in the past of not treating that relationship with the respect it deserves as well.
And so we're working on that so deeply, because it really is that working relationship that will take the best care of the pet. It's amazing to me working with Nadine and working with the other mental health people that were on the list. There was one whose name escapes me, my apologies, but I'm sure you remember, who talked about nutrition, and then one that talked about, physical health, yoga. So tell us a little bit about what they did, because I thought that was such an important piece of the pie. So you have to eat right. We all want the dogs and cats to eat right. Tell me a little bit about how one of the mental health professionals who were in the stream talked about that, and then about the movement.
Yeah, so I think it was Dory Martin who was sort of talking about the nutrition and things like that, and it was more from a human perspective as well.
Right. That's what I meant.
Yeah, which is great, because again, I guess if we're fueling our bodies properly, then we've got that energy. We're in the right sort of mental space as well to support ourselves and to support our teams. But it's also then, having the conversations with our pet owners about the nutrition for their pets as well, because it is similar to human nutrition. It's becoming such a complex field with so many new diets and new things that people are doing. And I suppose coming from
some of them aren't good.
That's it. And again, it's about not shutting people down with what they're doing. It's like, being curious about what they're feeding their pets, why they're doing it, and working with them if it is something that is either an amazing diet or if it's something that might have risks or that can be improved as well. Because some people do want to do home-cooked diets, but there are sort of services out there that you can get veterinary nutritional recipes for home-cooked diets, so that we're making sure that we're not getting nutritional deficits and things like that, or excesses as well, which can be just as harmful as well. And also, I think we're finding it with people and with pets, there's no one perfect diet as well. And so, we may recommend something that's worked well for us, hundreds of times before, but for this particular pet, there's something else that might work better. And it's frustrating to have to do sort of, I guess, a trial and error approach sometimes, but it's also, it's having that team around the pet as well, so that we're all having really good communication. So if something's not working, we can talk about, why it might not be working, what the other options are as well. At the end of the day, it's all about that pet. And it's also, everyone's doing the best they can. So our pet owners and the vets and the nurses in the team as well, we all want that best outcome for the pet, and we come from different directions. And so, we do have that clinical knowledge, but it's also really important to recognise that our owners, they're the expert in that pet. They're seeing them every day. They know what's normal for them as well. And so it's got to be a team approach. It's just so important to do that.
I love that you say that, because the team is so important, and the team has to respect each other as equal members. Because if I'm doing something for my dog that I believe is really good for my dog, coming down on me really hard about it will likely either not have me go back to the vet, or have me really shut down and not tell the vet anymore what I'm doing, which of course is like the worst thing in the world. So to be able to listen for understanding as to why. And Amy, I love Simon said, start with why. So why are you doing it that way, Lindsay? Why are you feeding them that food? Oh, because they don't eat very well. And you thought if you lace it with this, that'd be really great. Well, let's see. They're 10 pounds overweight right now. And, they're a bulldog, and, they have joints that, they're young now, they're 5 or 6 years old now, but when they get to be 12, like your dog, it's going to be a little more difficult for them. So can we think of something else? Would you be open to? Because that's the part of the program that I led, which was how to ask curious questions that don't shut somebody down. We want to make sure that relationship with a veterinarian, and I know that Greencross does this across the board with their members, their teams, to make sure that the client is as much a part of the team. And I also loved when you said, don't shut them down when they're telling you something, because that really is not going to help. And the ability for them to do what it is you've asked them to do. I have a friend who had a little tiny dog, one of those little dogs that are impossible to pill and or give any medication whatsoever. I don't care who you are, unless you're a very skilled vet or a very skilled breeder of little small dogs. It is really hard to give them a pill. I'm just telling you, I've watched some, and it's almost impossible, and I can pill almost anything. But so my friend had, I think it's Papillon, and she was trying to pill it, and she was talking to another vet, not her vet, but another vet who's a friend, and said, I just can't pill this dog. I find them all over the house. And the other vet said, well, do you know it comes in liquid? And she goes, no, I didn't know it came in liquid. She goes, yeah, it comes in liquid. You just shoot it in its mouth. So she went back to the vet. And we talked about this before we came on the air, but talking about money is like the other enigma for veterinarians. They just don't want to talk about money. The liquid form of this medication was about $5 more than the pill form. And I know it's difficult to talk about money, and you probably have a lot of, experience with your colleagues, but you have to, because if they can't get the pill down the dog's throat, you really do have to talk about that $5 more liquid.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sort of, talking about mental health, that money conversation really does come into it. And it varies a little bit country to country, but I've worked in Australia and the UK. And so both countries have a pretty good health system as well. But part of that is that people don't see the costs for their own healthcare as well. And so they've got very little to compare it with. And so, often we're doing, we've got, similar equipment to a lot of hospitals, we're doing similar procedures and things.
Provide the healthcare that you can because of that equipment, right?
Yeah, yep. And we've got, our nurses who are constantly monitoring the patients and things like that. And so it is a pretty labor intensive industry as well. And so there are costs associated with that, we have to pass on to clients as well. And so I think, it is always that difficult conversation. And, we don't want to be putting people in difficult situations, but that's sort of what it costs. And I think, we have a more of an emotional element brought into it compared if you're, getting your car fixed or something like that as well. And so, it's, it can be really hurtful when clients say to people, well, you're only in it for the money, you don't actually care about the pets. When we absolutely care about the pets, but we need to go home and buy our groceries and pay our mortgages and things like that, just like anyone else as well.
And having that conversation transparently, and also starting off when the puppies are young, saying, there is insurance out there now, and you have insurance for yourself for your health. Maybe you should have insurance for your pet as well, and not just wellness insurance, because I think the interesting thing is that There are two kinds of, well, there's more than two. There's a billion kinds of pet insurance out there now, but some do the wellness and some do the catastrophic. And I actually have one of each for my dogs because I'm basically crazy. But, some of it will refund your money when you go in for your regular checkups, and some will refund part of your money if you have a catastrophic event such as cancer, or God forbid the dog gets hit by a car or something like that. And here in the United States, and I'd love to hear if it's different in Australia, the veterinarians have a really hard time talking to the client when they bring in the puppy about starting insurance now while they don't have a pre-existing condition.
Yeah, so it's definitely something we're doing more of and getting that more of that uptake. And so I think in the UK, they've got a much higher percentage of insured clients than we do. And there are definitely issues with the insurance. So the fact that, if you do have a pre-existing condition, you can't then transfer policies, which makes it hard. So yeah, we are now starting to, when we're having that big puppy talk, talking about getting people to look into insurance before anything happens so that they're going to be covered for everything. And some people have, they've had experiences where they've had pets that have had serious illnesses that have cost them a lot of money.
And they're first online to get the insurance.
They are, yeah. Or they've got, specific breeds that are more prone to health issues, unfortunately. And so they've been talking to other people who own the same pets as well. And so they're sort of straight on that bandwagon, getting them nice and early as well. And, I guess with sort of any insurance, it's that sort of safety net if you've got costs that you aren't going to be able to afford yourself. And so, to some degree, you probably hope you never use it. But I think sometimes with pet insurance, it's one of those ones that people almost like to get the value out of it. And if they don't use it, then it's not always seen as that same safety net. Whereas it's sort of, I guess it's good if your pet doesn't get catastrophically sick and doesn't need that.
So absolutely. So you can't transfer it. So that money is sort of a sunk cost that you don't get back. Here in the United States, we have something, Dr. Mark Alcott's going to be on the podcast coming up. And he started something called Vitus Vet, which actually gives you the opportunity to set money aside for your pet care. Does Australia have anything like that where you can sort of pay a mortgage payment? No,
I don't think we've got anything like that at this stage. I think some people will self-insure themselves, so they might put it in a savings account. And I think it's any of those options are a good option. It's just about being prepared so that I guess money doesn't come into it when you're having to make difficult decisions for your pets as well, because you want to look at what's going to give them the best outcome. And sometimes it's, it is a balance. You're looking at potentially quite an invasive procedure that may not have the best success rate. And so you want to be able to think about that without thinking about the financial aspect. You just want to be looking at what's the best thing for your pet at this time.
Right. And you really need the transparency. I know in my office, when people come to me and they're disappointed with the outcome of a huge surgical procedure or something, usually what occurs is that the veterinarian, because they are positive and because they believe in their abilities, don't necessarily outline the what could go wrong. And that usually drives the pet owners nuts, because I didn't know that this could go wrong. I didn't know that could go wrong. And so for us, as people looking from the outside, if we could help veterinarians learn how to communicate, this is what we are looking forward to having happen. And I absolutely need to tell you what might be found, what might go wrong, because we all want to enter this next step. Like you said, knowing the full cost, but not having to worry about money, but knowing the full extent of possible outcomes. And I know you probably talk to your veterinarians all the time about, I know it's hard to say that, well, the dog or might have a bad reaction to anesthesia, might have a bad reaction to the surgery, something might go wrong, we might get in there. I know I've had dogs who've had spleens removed, and my vet always tells me, when I get in there, something's really bad, I'm going to call you. And I go, I get it. Because if you're in there and one of my dogs had pancreatic cancer and I just let them go, was I ready for them to go that day? No. Were they just supposed to have their spleen out? Yes. But by having that transparent conversation, I was ready for that phone call. Not really, but you know what I mean, that something else might be going on.
Yeah, and we've just sort of updated a lot of our consent forms and had a really big focus on informed consent. And it is about, I guess, talking about the outcomes, from different options as well. And unfortunately, that does involve going into what the risks of the procedure are. And it's a really fine line sometimes between scaring people too much, but also, so that they're prepared,
Right.
that, our pets they're biological, organisms. It's not a machine that we can just plug something into and do a sort of diagnostic thing. It's, there's like they talk about it's the art and science of veterinary medicine as well. And we need to look at the numbers with our results, but we also need to look at that patient in front of us. And yeah, even when we do absolutely everything we can, unfortunately, sometimes we don't get the outcome we want. And so it's, I think if clients are prepared for that, but it's always got to be done in a really sensitive manner. And yeah, it can be a difficult conversation to have. And so communication skills are just so vital for anyone in the world, but particularly in this industry as well, just to make sure that we're having that clear and open communication, that our clients have got opportunities to ask us questions, to get us to clarify things if we haven't been clear in explaining them as well, to talk about what they're worried about, what we're worried about, and just so we've got that two-way communication.
It is so important. Lindsay, this half hour flew by. I cannot believe it. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to have you back because you're just a fountain of information. I think three of the things that I'm taking away is that, animals are really part of our human-animal bond that have allowed us to really survive this COVID time and let us survive at any time. The team structure of how we approach veterinary relationships with our veterinarians, our veterinary nurses, and our clients is key. And then, of course, the last piece, which is my bugaboo, is how to communicate in a way that doesn't scare anyone, but lets them know everything that's going on. Because you really have to treat people with the respect that they can handle this. And yet, you don't want to, you put it perfectly, you don't want to scare them, but you really do want them to know so they can make an educated choice on what they want to do, because it really is the outcome that we all want. So Lindsay, I am so glad you were here. I'm so glad to have been a part of Greencross. I want everybody to check out Greencross. They can go to greencross.com, right?
Might be .com.au. Yep.
Lindsay, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you back. I hope you had a good time. I had a great time. This was a wonderful conversation. The Why Do Pets Matter podcast drops every Thursday and can be found on whichever platform you find your podcasts. Subscribe now, invite your friends, and I cannot wait to have you join me in these conversations.